Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hanging Out for a Living. I am your host, Theresa Oschmann, and today's guest has lived a life that reads like a backstage pass to rock and roll history. From interviewing Paul and Linda McCartney, George Harrison, David Bowie, Mick Jagger, and so many others, to co-producing the Beatles from Liverpool to Legend, one of the most celebrated Beatles specials of all time. Laurie Kaye has truly, really been there. But perhaps the most unforgettable moment in her extraordinary career came on December 18th, 1980, the day she co-conducted what would become John Lennon's final interview. Hours later, the world changed forever. Laurie shares that story and so much more in her award-winning memoir, Confessions of a Rock and Roll Name Dropper, My Life Leading Up to John Lennon's Last Interview. Laurie, welcome to Hanging Out for a Living. It's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you. It's happy for me to be here. And I just want to say that not only did I co-produce all those Beatles specials, I wrote them all too and
Oh
did
my,
all the research. So that definitely took up days and nights of my career because during the day I worked at the radio station and at night I would have to stay up and do research and write them all.
oh my gosh. Wow. I can't even imagine how much time that took. And back then, right, we didn't have the internet as we have it now.
Correct. And that's why I describe it all in my book. People will understand how everything helped me get through it.
Absolutely. And everyone, in the description of this video, there'll be a link to be able to grab a copy of Laurie's book. So, Laurie, I want to honor your time and we'll dive into the questions that I'd love to ask you. So, you've said that as a kid, your transistor radio was your escape, your connection to the world that felt safe and inspiring. How did that love of radio lead you to a career where you'd eventually be sitting across from the biggest names in music history?
Well, thanks to being raised by my dysfunctional family, I escaped my boring, crappy, and sometimes violent childhood, starting out as a toddler by keeping my ears plugged in to a super cool transistor radio all the time. It led to my life of loving rock and roll, and for the rest of my entire life, especially when I got to high school. And that's when I won, thanks to LA's top FM radio station back then, KMET, front row seats to the Rolling Stones Nicaragua benefit concert at the Forum. That was back in January 1973. And when I went to the radio station to pick up my tickets, the super cool disc jockey B. Mitchell Reed, otherwise known as the Beamer, put me on the air with him to congratulate me. And afterwards, he told me I had such a great voice and answered his questions so well, I should definitely consider an on air radio career. So, of course, I absolutely did, and it worked out incredibly well for a number of years. I just thank him so much.
That is so awesome. And for those of you that do not know what a transistor radio is, not now, but when you have a minute, Google it and look at images, and that'll give you exactly what Laurie was listening to. Um, so that's great. Thank you so much for that, Laurie. So let's talk about that day, the best and worst in your life. You were sitting with John and Yoko just hours before tragedy struck. Every time I read this or think about it, I just want to cry because of what happened. But what stands out most vividly from this interview, something that that the world might not know about John from those final hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was an incredible interview, one of my absolute favorites. And John was super complimentary about my questions and the comments I made, and looked at me sweetly during the whole interview, saying things like, "Exactly, Lori," and "Yes, love." And when I said, "I want to ask you, John, about getting the urge to make music again," that's what I emphasized. John burst in with his super loud, funny, and affectionate reply. Oh, it came over me all over a sudden, love. I didn't know what came over me. And everybody in the room laughed while I reacted confidently to his endearing response. I know, I said. It's like you were possessed, John. And he said, I was possessed by this rock and roll devil, you know. And John said, and everybody else laughed more. Was that the question? He asked politely. Did I interrupt you? And I said, No, you got it. And he answered again, saying, Well, just suddenly I had, like, if you'll pardon the expression, a diarrhea of creativity. And that was the way he created Double Fantasy with Yoko. And it just made me so glad to hear. And all that was all the way through the interview. And at the tail end of our time together, I not only got to have an amazing photo of me taken with John and Yoko, which of course ended up on the cover of my book,
Yes.
black and white version, but the original version was in color, and I still have it and look at it so many
Oh,
times during the day, every day. And not only did we take that photo, but we also made plans to get together again in a couple of weeks when they would be in San Francisco. They wanted to meet up with us and eat dinner at Yoko's favorite Japanese restaurant there. But unfortunately, when I left the Dakota, I got bugged and bothered by a creepy guy hanging outside who, sad to say, became John's asshole assassin.
oh.
Ugh. And he followed me down the street and kept saying, Did you talk to him? Did you get his autograph? What'd he say? What'd he say? What'd he say? And of course, I never answered that creep.
Oh, you know, um, you shared that moment. That was just that encounter, and like you said, it was really, really creepy. And you also said that that has stayed with you for decades, right? How have you made peace, or at least found perspective around that experience over the years?
Well, I still feel guilty for not reporting that creep to the Dakota security team for accosting and chasing me down the street all the way past the Dakota. They might have been able to get rid of him before John and Yoko returned to the Dakota, because that's when he shot and killed John.
Oh,
And these security team no doubt would have realized that this soon to be killer was carrying a gun in the pocket of the coat he was wearing, which I sadly did not. Damn it. And to be honest, I'll never forgive myself for not trying to get that guy taken away. And of course, I never say or write his name ever, especially not in my book. He definitely doesn't deserve any publicity, and not just not from me, but from anybody.
I totally agree. I can't even imagine. I mean, that's years and years of nightmare. And I'm sure you didn't see the gun in his coat pocket either. He was just, he was verbally accosting you. So that's absolutely terrible. And then to our last question. As we approach the 45th anniversary of that day, what do you hope readers would take away from your story? Not just about John and Yoko, but about survival, resilience, and the healing power of music.
Well, thanks to John Lennon's tragic assassination following our amazing interview, I still consider December 8th, 1980 to be both the best and the absolute worst day of my entire life. And I hope readers of my memoir understand not only how rock music took me there, but also how and why rock and roll still plays such an important part of my existence. And it's all these years later. And whenever I feel lousy or guilty or incompetent these days, for whatever reasons, it's super helpful for me to go to live concerts and listen to my favorite incredible albums to totally improve my mood and my ability, and to help me be able to keep working on whatever needs to be done to upgrade my life and reality. So happy to say music is and always will be totally inspirational for me, whether I listen to it on the radio or records or live. And it can be for everyone else too. So I super recommend listening and loving music.
Oh, absolutely. There's magic in music, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, totally. Well, Laurie, I want to thank you so much for sharing such an extraordinary story from your days as a rock and roll journalist to the unforgettable moment in music history. Confessions of a Rock and Roll Name Dropper just isn't just a behind the scenes look at icons like John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and David Bowie. It's a powerful story of resilience, courage, and living your dream no matter what it takes. So, folks, if you love music, storytelling, and a little bit of rock and roll nostalgia, the link to grab Laurie's book is in the description of this video. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss another inspiring interview. Laurie, thank you again. So appreciate you taking time out of your day.
I appreciate, and I should add that the
Sure.
actual title of my book is Confessions of a Rock and Roll Name Dropper: My Life Leading Up to John Lennon's Last Interview. And it's the story of my rock radio related early life and career wrapped around what tragically turned out to be John Lennon's last day on the planet. And sadly, his last interview, which I co conducted for RKO Radio on December 8th, 1980, at the Dakota. And I was unbelievably able to spend a major part of that day with him and Yoko. And I felt like I'd begun to make lifetime friends, and I wish that had been able to happen.
I bet. Do you still hear his voice maybe in your head sometimes, kind of as you might be reading the words that you wrote or anything like that, and you can hear him talking those words?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
listened to not only pieces of the interview, but the incredible RKO radio special that I wrote afterwards. John Lennon, The Man, the Memory, that was super popular and played all over the country and then all over the world, and included a major part of our interview. I listen to it as much as I can, and I love hearing his voice and everything he said, or most of the things he said to me.
Absolutely. Such a beautiful memory, even though it's wrapped in tragedy, in the tragic death. Um, Still hard to believe that it's been 45 years already. Wow.
I
So
know.
I know time flies. Thank you again, Lori, and thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye for now. Bye bye.